Hey guys, Kevin Ellis Jr. here with the Apex Racing Academy with this tutorial for the Porsche Cup car at COTA. So essentially guys, coming down towards turn 1 here, we want to utilise this curb on the right hand side as we come into the corner, just to help open up the first corner as much as we can. Obviously it's a blind summit as you come up over here, and essentially in terms of braking markers it's a little bit vague. There is like a slight line goes right across the track, like this sort of black little patch here, and essentially I just try to brake next to that. However, a more ideal marker is probably somewhere around here. It's this dust patch. If you want to brake on the dust patch, then you'd be more than safe. You can see we're going just a little bit further. We're over the top of it, and then we start braking just as we clear it. And again, as always, our slow to threshold, we can be slightly quicker to threshold here just because it's uphill. You can see here we're pretty swift to threshold, and then as we come up over the crest, really drop the brake out of it, down into second gear, and then we turn in, and then right as soon as you get through the apex here, as soon as you hit the apex, you want to pick up the throttle. So you can see we've hit the apex, and then pick up the power. Now, of course, as you come out of here, the track falls away down a massive hill, so it is going to start to get loose, which you can see here. Counter steering just as we come over the crest, and then try and get as far to the left as you can. There's no reason to be like way over here, but you certainly don't want to be like in the center or just to the left of the center of the track. And also short shifting into 5th gear down into here as well. You can see we're in 4th, and then as we turn in, short shift to 5th, and that just gives us a bit more freedom on the power to keep more throttle on. If you use 4th, then you're gonna have to shift to 5th somewhere around here, like halfway through the acceleration zone as you're putting full power down. Whereas you can just short shift to 5th and just leave it. And you can use a little bit more throttle as well, just obviously because you're at a higher RPM, it's a little bit dulled down. So yeah, you should be able to get through there absolutely fine. Then essentially as you come off the curb, that's when you just get to full throttle. And then towards the S's, you want to try and get again into the middle of the track. No real reason to be way off to the right hand side. You only need to be in the middle of the track. Then straight away, we're going to start lifting. Essentially as you come under this Tequila Patron bridge, just begin to start lifting off the throttle gradually. Little dab of brake through the left. And obviously this is just all about weight transfer and car positioning. So when I get as close to this curb on the left hand side, if you hit this, obviously it's going to launch the car off. You can see how close we get to it there. Nice and close on the left. A little spurt of throttle just as you come through the left. And then again back on the brakes for the right. Get the weight over the front end so that you can get it change direction into the right. And again you can see how close we get to the curb on the right. If you hit this bit here, it's going to launch the car. So make sure you keep it, this is basically as close as you can get it. And then again, another little spurt of throttle out of that corner, and then back on at the brakes again to get the weight to transfer back to the front wheels to then change direction again for this left. And then again, aiming right in for the angle here, and you can see basically clip all 3 of them absolutely perfect there. Then a big chunk of throttle on the exit, just getting to full throttle as well. Just be nice and gradual with the throttle. A good way to pick up the throttle is right as you're coming to the anti-cut on the inside here. You can see, like, I know where the trajectory is, we're fine, and then I just get back onto the throttle as early as possible. Get into full power here, and taking quite a chunk off this inside here. You can cut quite a lot over the inside, and then again, don't need to be as close to this one because ultimately we're going to be drifting out the way. And as we come up to the yellow anti-cut on the right hand side, just begin to trail just a little bit of brake again, just to get the weight to transfer over the front tyres, get the car to rotate and turn into the corner. And then once you feel it bite, you can see that the car's visibly going to rotate. You start to pick up the power before you hit this curb on the right hand side, and then this will allow you to stay tight to the right hand side. You don't want to exit way over this side, you want to be really tight to the right on the exit, so then you can open up this next left. So then into the left again, similar to the S's, as close to this curb as you can on the inside, picking up throttle just as you're coming to the apex. So you can see here, we're picking up throttle right here before we get to the apex. And that's a key thing about the S's, is to make sure you're always picking up throttle before you get to that yellow curb on the inside, just to push you out the corner and keep your speed up. And then as you come out here, keep it tight to the left again. That's why we keep it so tight to the right here. Keep it so tight to the right on the exit of the right hander, so that you can open up this left, and then you're tight to the left on the exit, so that then you can open up the right hander. So essentially want your left hand wheels just right out over the white line, and then right as soon as you get there, you want to start braking. There's no real brake markers here inside the car. It's just a case of really feeling it, but it's as soon as you go to change direction. You want to get on the brakes again so that the weight transfers over the front tyres. And again, keep in mind this is uphill, so there's not really much need for any brake really at all. This is just to try and keep the car rotating here. And then you can see the brake lights come off even though we've still got some brake input on. And then right as you get to this tarmac kind of run off on the inside here, this is your cue to start picking up the throttle. And then through here it's the case of balancing the throttle, modulating the throttle just to keep the rotation staying the same. So you can cut this much off the inside, you don't get any off track for this. You can cut as much off the right hand side as possible, so again you can open up the left. Then power out the right up the hill. Again, you can be quite aggressive with the power here because again it's uphill, so it's going to make everything just a little bit more stable as all the weight's over the rear tyres. And then as you come off the left, getting just the full throttle, lifting again, aiming for the anti-cut on the left hand side, and then really going to power through that. As soon as you get through the curb, start to get full throttle, then right as you come up over the crest, just being careful of the off track on the outside on the exit. So then down in towards the hairpin, this is a really tough corner, especially when you take into account inside rear locking. It's really difficult to try and take care of that. But essentially your brake marker here is just going to be the start of this curb on the right hand side. Basically as you come up to it, hit the brakes, or ideally you can even use where it changes from red to green here. You can utilise that runoff there. You can just hit the brakes right around there. And this one's a case of being really slow to threshold and try and keep it in a straight line. You can see here we're keeping it really tight, really wide to the outside, so that then we can open up this left hander, get a good run off the corner. So now as we're turning in, we're in second gear, trailing the whole way in, again keeping the weight over the front tyres so that we can get some rotation. And then as soon as we hit that apex, we're picking up the throttle, very similar to T1. Then on the exit, obviously modulating the throttle. If you're getting on throttle really early, you should be getting a little bit loose out here, which you can see we had a little bit of a correction. And then I just had to double check that I wasn't going to get an off track as well. I just had to play that a bit safe. Then down the back straight, this will be a good passing opportunity then down into the hairpin at the end of the back straight. And then here I've actually found that if you run with your right hand tyres on the curb, it actually helps slow the car down. I don't know if that's just placebo or if there is actually some kind of drag from the curb, but you want to try and get your right hand tyres on this curb and it should slow the car down a little bit better. And unfortunately 150 is just a little bit too late, so it's one of them braking zones where you want to brake so that as you get to that 150 meter line that you're at threshold. So it's a little bit awkward, but again it just comes down to practice and feel. So if you watch the brake input here, as we come across the 150 board, we're at threshold, and it's really not changing at all after we pass it. And if we rewind and go to that point, you can see here where our brake input is at the 150 line. And then when we fast forward, maybe it goes up 2 or 3%, and then we're just holding threshold, still holding threshold. We're past the 100 board, still holding threshold the full way, still holding. And then right as you come to the 50 and begin to turn in, you really start to drop the brake input out of it quite quickly. There you can see it decreasing now quite quickly, but making sure to still keep brake on. Don't lift completely off the brake. Keep the brake on so that, again, weight stays over those front tyres. It's all about weight distribution at this circuit. It's understanding how your inputs are going to affect how the weight moves from the front of the car to the back of the car, or from left to right as well. So as you come into here, you actually don't need an awful lot of steering input here. We crank just an extra little bit of lock in just at the apex to ensure we don't get loose, and then right as it compresses into the apex as well, starting to get the throttle on, and then just run wide out to the curb on the outside again, watching for the off track. Back to the left, nice and aggressive, and then there's these tyre marks right here that we're going to use as a brake marker. You can see we're already quite firmly up to threshold by the time we get there, so it's another one of those kind of braking zones where you want to make sure you're at threshold by the time you get to here. See, we're at threshold as we cross them, and then we drop the brake out of it quite quickly. Into here, if you just go back, we're going to be using third gear for this corner, just leaving it in third. And then you can't really cut too much off the inside here, the yellow curb on the inside. Sometimes the car is a bit weird when you take it. You can kind of catch the lip as you come off it, and it will sort of maybe make the car bounce weird and you struggle to get back to power. So I like to just try and keep it on the flat red and white, just to allow for some better drive off. But essentially right as soon as we get to the apex, picking up the throttle, nice and patient. And I think we do use second for that last corner. It's quite a late downshift, and then you short shift to third here. Then you want to cut across the right hand curb here, nice and simple, flat out. And then these are your brake markers here for the next section. You can see all these tire marks from inside front lockups and everything else. That's roughly where we're going to brake. You can see we're actually braking a little bit early, so as we come over the end of these, the start of these tire marks is going to be your braking point. And then you want to try and brake obviously in as straight a line as possible. So as you come into here, set yourself up for that. Like, get yourself nice and tight to the left hand side here. Don't be wandering away out here, because there's no reason to be out here. You're just making the corner way longer for yourself and way more awkward. Just bring it into the left or the center, or the left to the center, should I say, of the track. And then as you come in here, obviously if you're going to be braking a straight line, you end up in the middle of the track, which can open up this left-hander. Nice and gradual with the steering input. You can see we're just holding this very minimal amount of brake on. Again, that's just to keep weight over the front tires rather than lifting completely off the brake. The car will just understeer and push mid-corner. You keep some kind of brake on, it keeps the weight over the front, keeps things direct. You can actually point the car where you want it to go. And especially if you're nice and gradual with a steering input here, you see how gentle we are with the input. And then right as we get to the apex, we crank it to 180. And also at the same time, we're going to apply the power in there as well. See, we just crank it to 180, just past 180, and then pick up the power right on the apex curb. And then again, going to get a little bit loose on the exit there, but you should be absolutely fine. Then to this next right, then you want to start lifting. Again, there's no real marks, it's a little bit awkward. But essentially as you come into here, you just start to lift off the throttle, because if you come steaming in here full throttle, you're going to have to do a lot of decelerating mid-corner. But essentially we bring it in here, just gradually coming off the throttle, then you're going to be kind of tap dancing almost. So you don't really want to hit this first curb on the inside, because that's a bit too early. This here is your apex curb right here, and essentially you want to cut over the inside. Again, if you cut too much, you'll get an off track. But you can see we sort of decelerate up until the apex, and then a big chunk of power straight through the middle. You can see the whole time we're just having to kind of tap the throttle just to try and keep the car rotating the whole way. So then, not quite, yeah, we're just getting to full throttle, and then as you come into the second right, get your right hand wheels in this curb, will help pull the car around the corner, and then you're essentially full throttle, little confidence lift on the exit there, and then get the car over to the right hand side. And then there's some tire marks again. Obviously they kind of change angle here, so they kind of come in straight and then they shoot off to the left. When they shoot off to the left, so right around here is when I'm going to be braking. So from inside the car, for example, I'm looking at these black marks here. You can see the ones that go right off to the left hand side. So you're going to brake to the curb on the right hand side. Now here, ideally you do want to cut over that inside. It's a really, really flat curb here. You can drive completely over it. But we just got just a little bit of understeer in the entry, and I didn't quite turn in quite aggressively enough to get the angle right. But you can still take this line and be just as quick, because you can get back to power slightly earlier, just with the slightly, because you got a wider line into the corner, you can be a little bit tighter on the exit, so you can be a bit more aggressive on the power. So essentially we're going to pick up the throttle right before we get to that apex curb on the inside, right around here, so you can see where we are. We're not going to pick up throttle here, we're picking it up back here to then power through the corner. And of course, this would be notorious for off tracks in qualifying. Just be really, really careful. You can see just running right out to the edge of what's legal. And then just keeping your right hand wheels on the red stuff. You know, there's no off track for that. It saves you having to go all the way left and then pull back right again. Just keep it as straight and direct as possible. And then this tarmac runoff on the right hand side, or this escape road on the right hand side, is your brake marker for the final corner. So down into second gear, right out onto the green. On the right hand side, this will help open up the final corner. It's kind of like the Interlagos final corner, if you remember that, when you go right out onto the blue concrete. This is essentially the same thing. So as you turn in, nice and aggressive over the inside. Again, this curb on the inside is really, really flat. It's not going to really cause you any issues. And again, this is an uphill apex, so you can get back to power just a little bit earlier than you feel. And again, don't need as much brake as you feel either, because once you get into the apex, the gravity will do a little bit of that true braking for you. It'll do a little bit of slowing down. So essentially here, right as soon as our left front gets onto the curb, so you're powering through the apex. A lot of the really slow hairpins, like turn 1 and the two hairpins, the one before the back straight and the one at the end of that, it's a case of getting to power on the apex. But these sort of medium speed 90-degree corners, you want to power through the apex as opposed to on it. So this is key, like here, and obviously the corner previous, picking up the throttle before the apex, but all the really slow speed hairpins, you're picking up the power on the apex. And essentially through here, it should be a nice smooth run at the line, no real issues. A little bit of oversteer as the car comes up over the crest, and then with that, come to the start finish line. So with that, guys, that is a lap of COTA in the Porsche Cup. As always, any kind of questions you can ask in the Apex Racing Academy Discord. We'll be sure to get back to you there. But with that, guys, I'll leave you with this. Hopefully you found it informative as always, and the best of luck next week.